Eyre Peninsula farmers have been reflecting on the past 12 months after a violent 50-year storm that blacked out South Australia just before 4 p.m. on September 28, 2016. Rain, hail, wind and tornadoes. Farmers copped the lot that day, as did many others around South Australia during the superstorm. Sheds were damaged, livestock killed and crops that were looking to break records were smashed. 1 year later, farmers are preparing for another harvest and remembering the day the storm blew in. Still devastating to think about. Cleve farmer Ant Harris said it only took 6 minutes for his crops to be destroyed, with some of them being the best he had ever grown. The hail tore through in a strip 2 kilometers wide and about 5 kilometers long, with hail the size of a 50-cent piece. Mr. Harris said it was still devastating to think that a season that had had such huge potential was wiped out so quickly. For it to come through and do so much damage in a confined area, it is unbelievable how hail could swirl and knock it around so much, he said. Cleve farmer Ant Harris says this season's crops are a real mixed bag, but he just has to keep moving forward with a smile. Mr. Harris said following the storm, and after the insurance assessor came through, there was a hell of a mess to clean up. There was all the smashed straw we ran over with the header. We got a bit back, but it won't have covered the costs of reaping. It was purely for stubble management. He said after reaping the damaged crops, he was surprised with what they ended up getting back. The funny thing was that all the maize wheat we reaped off the hail-damaged paddock that went pretty much Australian premium white APW, and all the stuff we had reaped prior all went Australian standard white ASW. Mr. Harris checks the damage to his canola crop after the storm in 2016. I don't really know how that works, but we ended up with protein with the smashed stuff and no protein with our really good crops. I'm still trying to work that out. The Harris family has put in their full cropping program once again, but with a lack of rain the season has not eventuated to last year's potential big numbers. We need to take the good with the bad. We had 7 good ones, so we had to expect a bad one sooner or later, Mr. Harris said. Martin and Matthew Deere have a look at a 2017 wheat crop that should finish off well for the season. More damage than first thought. When Martin Deere first assessed the damage to his property at Cowell, he initially thought it was just one strip on the northeast corner of his farm. But when harvest rolled around it soon became apparent the damage was more widespread. Where the stem was weakened by the hail it broke off later, and instead of maybe 5% damage it was closer to 30 to 40%, he said. The wheat crop that was smashed in a matter of minutes by hail started to reshoot a few weeks after the storm, but there was still nothing substantial. It did regrow a little bit, because it was smashed off so low, and the underground was so wet, so it did try and get ahead on it, Mr. Deere said. We reaped a little bit, but there wasn't anything really in it. It was more to get it away from the sheep. Martin Deere decided for 2017 he would run sheep on the paddock that last year had its wheat crop completely wiped out by hail. The paddock has now been put to pasture and has had sheep run through it for most of 2017. And on the other parts of the farm, Mr. Deere said the crops were not looking too bad. We got some pretty good early rains and got our crop in early, and it all came up. We then had a dry June and July, but rain in August has helped, he said. It's a bit like most years, where we are one good rain short of a really good year and one rain less, and we would be in a drought, but that is how it is in this country. As well as the crops recovering, the flora has also started to grow back. Mr. Deere said when the storm went through it stripped all the native trees in his paddocks, and it looked like a fire had gone through. It stripped all the leaves off, and the understory was all gone, but 12 months later it has started to come back nicely, he said.